Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Shankly Gates Podcast. Tonight, I'm joined by Kieran and Dan, both freshly from the Liverpool game tonight. 2-2 ended up against Manchester City. After the first half, I think I was calling for a draw, but at the end of the game, it being a draw, Kieran, I'll start with you first of all. Would you say that it's a point gained, or would you say it's 2 points lost?
I think there's you can make an argument for both, to be honest. Like you say, in the first half, we were abysmal. There was no two ways about it. We were awful. So you said to yourself, probably take a point, but then, just like last week, again, we get in front in the game, not just once, but twice, and we don't see the game out. So you could probably make a stronger case there that it's probably 2 points dropped. I mean, for me, it probably is a good result if we'd have won last week, but two draws on the bounce, and now we've played to our two closest rivals at home and not beat any of them. I am walking away from the game just as slightly disappointed.
What were your opinions on the first half then?
Me, terrible. Sorry, just me or Kieran?
Well, both of you, first of all.
Go on, Dan.
Yeah, awful. Absolutely awful first half. Like, there's no beating around the bush with it, to be honest. And I think Klopp pretty much said as much from the little sort of post-game stuff I've seen. We just weren't at the races whatsoever. We were exactly the opposite of how we should play against Man City. I mean, first probably 5-10 minutes, it was what I expected. We were pressing quite well. We were lively. But after that, we just let them. They're a very good side, but we let them dictate play. We were too easy to pass through, and they just kept getting in. To be fair, they targeted Milner's side. They doubled up on him, and he had a seriously difficult task with Grealish and Foden. But we just didn't do anything right for about half an hour in the first half.
I'll stay with you there then, Dan. Where do you think the biggest issue was in the first half? Would you say it was a midfield, or would you say that it was the right back position, obviously with Trent not being available for the game?
I'd say it was the midfield. It'd be easy to pin it on the right back, to be honest, because he was the one who ended up getting a lot of the pressure, Milner, because that's the way they were targeting. And naturally, like you're looking at, our best left back and one of the best left backs in the league on one side in Robertson next to Van Dijk. You're not going to go down there when Matip, who's very good, but he's not Van Dijk, Matip playing alongside Milner. That's the way to go for them. But for me, it stemmed from the midfield. That midfield was too easy to get through. There wasn't enough cover. We didn't keep the ball well. There was about a 10-minute period whereby we just gave them the ball back every single time we won it. It was really frustrating. And it was miles away from what we are used to as Liverpool fans these days.
Kieran, do you think that defensively we did a good job to keep City out in the first half, or do you think we were just very lucky to get into half-time at 0-0 still?
I think a bit of both. I think I would agree. The midfield, the three, Henderson, Fabinho and Jones there, it wasn't good enough. Dan's spot on. They got through too easily. They gave us no protection for the defence at all. And every time they tried to look dangerous, they were coming down Milner's side. So, we weren't good enough there. You're right. You look at times, Alisson makes, good saves. But, you were just playing, getting through to half time. Again, as Dan said, we just couldn't keep the ball. Felt like the last 15 minutes, the ball was in, the Liverpool half. Couldn't get it out, couldn't get it clear. So, I was just, praying we got to half time and we did it 0-0. And slightly surprised didn't make a change at half time. I thought he might, but, as we saw in the start of the second half, it was the lads reacted.
I think the one thing I actually want to get your opinions on is Curtis Jones. He had a great game midweek. I think off the back of that, and I know we've had a few injuries in midfield as well, he earned his place in the side today. But do you think that he performed well enough to stay on the pitch for most of the game or the entire game? I'll start with you, Kieran, first of all.
It wasn't his best game at all. He was certainly in the first half. He was very non-existent. Hardly got on the ball. Wasn't picking up his men. The ball was going through him too much. But again, the game midweek, 4 assists, you were, quite right into his place there. Obviously, maybe Harvey Elliott may have played if he was fit, but, that's, a different story. So, Yeah, I think from his performance, he deserved his place in the team, but no, he wasn't up to it. I mean, we won't play City every week, that's for sure, but yeah, wasn't one of his best performances today.
Dan, how about you? I think we've spoken a few times about the midfield needing a Wijnaldum replacement, and I think tonight seemed like, for me, we needed Wijnaldum in that midfield, or a Wijnaldum-like player, just to add extra legs in there. What do you think?
I think extra legs is a good shout, and I think someone, especially in that first half, just to put the foot on the ball and say, let's calm down here and try and dictate play and try and keep possession for a few minutes. I actually think Thiago would have been perfect. I know, again, injured, not available, but I think he would have been the ideal solution to that. I think for all Curtis Jones's good work recently, the first half in particular was poor today, but I think everyone was, so it's difficult really to pin it on him. Second half, better. I still would have liked to have seen a change. I think Naby Keita coming on. Just a different type of player. Curtis Jones has got that sort of X factor to make something happen, but at some point today, we just needed to control the game a little bit better. And I think when we took the lead the second time around, I definitely would have been looking to go to Keita, just to try and, like I say, calm things down and try and obtain some possession of the football, which we lacked a lot today. But yeah, overall, I think the Wijnaldum situation is a difficult one. You know, you look at big games like this and you think, do you need that extra industry? But I'm not sure we did. I just think the players who did play today were off a level, and I'd include Jordan Henderson in that. I think he had a really, I hate to say it, I think he had a really poor game, to be honest.
I know we've slated the midfield, but ironically, it was Fabinho who set Salah through for the first goal. Kieran, what did you make of the first goal? Do you think it was deserved, or do you think that it came against the run of play?
Well, to be honest, that second half, I thought we were much the better team at that time in the game, if you forget everything that went before it. So I don't think it was, against the run of play at all. I thought we were right in the game. We were the dominant side, the one who looked most likely to score. And yeah, Salah's got the ball, breaks forward, cuts inside and releases the ball to Mane. I know we were discussing at the start, Tara, and when you see Mane going through with, time, and you think to yourself, make the right decision here, Sadio, and boy, he did. Fantastic finish, Not so much, caught them cold, but it would have been a shock to City, especially after that first half. Would have been looking to come out again, do the same again, nick a goal, and do what they do. But fantastic response from the misery that was first half, and a wonderful goal.
Dan, I'm quite interested in asking you this, but do you think that goal sort of encapsulated what the front two, I'd say, if you take Jota out of it, are about in Mane and Salah? We've seen how good they are for the past few years, and I've spoken a bit about us missing them later on in the season. But do you think that summed up our attack in that first goal?
Yeah, I'd say so. Those two linking up isn't something we see necessarily all the time, because obviously they play on opposite wings. But it was pretty perfect, and it's what we have seen previously from them. Salah does brilliantly to get away in the first place, and the weight on the pass is perfect, which allows Mane to obviously take it early, which is probably important. But more importantly from that, I think, Mane's been a big topic recently, even though he's been scoring goals. His performances and moments like that necessarily haven't been going very well for him. But obviously he got that one spot on. But yeah, those two are massively important to us. Like, I think, as ridiculous as it sounds right this second, I think Mane's as good as Salah on his day. Just his days have been very much few and far between recently. If anything, I think the goals have actually masqueraded some quite bad performances from him recently, which might be a little bit critical. But if he hasn't scored, say for instance that Leeds game we played the other week, I thought it was really quite poor, and then he scores, so we all kind of go, okay, everything's all right again, But listen, he scores today, and it's a good goal, and we move on.
I think we'll stick with the front three as well. Jota started today. I think you could have made a case for Firmino after his 2 goals in the week, and maybe adding a bit more strength to that midfield in the way he drops back. Do you think it was right to start Jota, or would you have started Firmino, Dan?
I would have started Firmino, and I actually think normally when I say something like this and you watch the game, you almost backtrack on it, but I still would have started Firmino after the game. I don't think Jota had his best afternoon. I think the fact he was replaced first kind of hinted towards that. And too many times they were allowed to get the ball to Rodri or De Bruyne dropping deep and he could spin. I'm not sure with Firmino on the field they do that easily because Firmino rather can sit on that sort of defensive midfield and make life difficult. Jota is very much like Salah and like Mane in that he likes to get in behind, he likes to have an impact. I think we really miss Firmino.
Kieran, how about you? Firmino or Jota to start the game today?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But I think just we know the way City play, the way they like love to dominate the midfield. I think Bobby was the answer today. Yeah, nothing against Jota. It's a wonderful start to the season. Been wonderful for us ever since we signed him. But yeah, Dan's spot on. What he gives you, what he doesn't necessarily give you in the box, he definitely gives you between the 18-yard box and the halfway line. What he does is simply fantastic. So what he's done for a number of years. So yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Jota didn't necessarily have his best game, and probably was right to be brought off. So yeah, one of those maybe could have been different if Bobby starts, but just one of those.
I think you mentioned before we came on as well, Kieran, about defensively going ahead and then conceding, and that's ultimately what we ended up doing. Do you think that was largely down to the defence, or do you think it was a whole team issue with, like Dan was talking about, being too easy to play through and sort of leaving space in the defence and leaving it throughout the midfield, and also Milner not getting as much cover on the right side as well?
Yeah, both goals were pretty similar in the way they came about, obviously from that right hand side. I've talked about the first one. I'm not sure. I think the second one's more the midfield fault, but we'll get to that later. I think just the first one, obviously, the ball gets to Foden there. Whether Milner can be maybe a bit tighter on him, I'm not sure. Does seem to there's a little bit of a gap between Milner and Foden, but to be fair, credit to Phil Foden because I think it's a wonderful finish. I think that's the only place you can put the ball for him to score. And sometimes, especially Milner doesn't play that position, you've just got to take the chance and say, listen, if it's right in the corner, you score. If not, he's not. But, luckily for us, it was right in the corner and, it was a bit disappointing. I think I'd more have a go at the second one more than the first one, really. I mean, Jesus is allowed to take that ball, too far. Someone needs to throw a tackle in that midfield. Ball gets wide again. I mean, Milner's off the pitch at this point. It's Joe Gomez, I think, who's on at this point. And obviously comes from that side, comes back to De Bruyne. I'm not sure. It looks like it's been deflected in. Just the way the ball seems to hit the middle of the goal. So I'm more looking at the second one than the first one, especially going 2-1 in front, and the fact we've already conceded the goal from that side. But yeah, I am disappointed, especially after last week. Need to learn our lessons getting in front and managing games.
I think we'll talk about City's equaliser, but not before we mention, Dan, Salah's absolute wonder goal to put us ahead. Can you summarise that for us?
God, how long have we got? No, it's phenomenal, isn't it? It is absolutely like you run out of superlatives for him for that goal. The man's on fire. Let's have it right anyway. He started the season phenomenally well, and even prior to that goal, he sets up the first, and he just looks sharp. But that is it's similar to what he did against Tottenham at our place in a very similar game in many ways, which finishes a draw as well. I mean, those goals deserve to win matches, don't they? That one today deserves to win a football match, and more, if we're honest. But yeah, the way he sits down, pretty much half their defence, and some good players while he's at it. I thought Bernardo Silva was really good for them today, and he got absolutely turned inside out. Laporte as well, faints. It's as close as I've seen to who I believe is the best footballer to ever walk the earth, Lionel Messi. It's as close to that as I've ever seen in the Premier League. Certainly from a Liverpool perspective, it is ridiculously good.
Kieran, what about you? What else do you have to add to that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if Messi scores that for Barca or PSG, you imagine how absolutely everyone's going to rave about that.
Yeah.
It's simply world class, not just the goal itself, the opposition. Pretty much, in this country, the defence, the only money can buy. Which he's just, as Dan said, he's just sat half of them down. And it's just an unbelievable, not just the twists and turns, but the finish as well. Pass, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, just leaves him standing there. It's absolutely unreal. I know we talked about before, we compared it to the Spurs goal as well, but I think that's not just a little bit, but I think that's twice as good than the Spurs one. He's an unbelievable player. I'm always honestly I can't put anyone above him in terms of best players we've had in the Premier League. I honestly can't.
I think it's quite unfortunate that a goal like that then ultimately gets overshadowed by their equaliser. I think we'll talk first about Milner. He comes off after the goal, but do you think he should have stayed on the pitch, Kieran? Or do you think that Pep Guardiola going absolutely mental was justified?
Well, yeah, that was on my side where I was sitting. He was absolutely livid, wasn't he? I mean, it was on the other side of the pitch from me, but it looked like Milner does stick a leg out, and I think it was a Bernardo Silva he brings down. Yeah. He looks like he's got a bit of daylight to run into there. So definitely incidents you've seen given yellow cards for. But I mean, I think I have to credit the ref, and I may be a bit biased, but we want to see 11v11. I think in that situation, maybe if it's the other way around and we're baying for blood, we're saying that should be a red card. But I don't know if I'm just being biased and saying it's good to see 11v11 on the pitch. But I can understand people saying he's being a bit lucky there. You've definitely seen yellows been given for challenges like that.
Dan, how about you? Do you think it was a second yellow, or do you think it was nice to see the referee let the game flow?
I think it's obviously. Listen, what I will say is the irony in this whole situation is that 2 minutes later, Bernardo Silva brings someone down in an attacking situation, having already been booked. So, I actually looked straight over Pep Guardiola when that happened and thought, is he not going mad about this one as well? No, also, you know what I mean? Listen, I actually believe Milner's is a yellow card, and I believe it probably should be a second, and he should walk, but it's not nailed on. And like I say, 2 minutes later, Silva does the same thing, and he stays on the pitch. So it's obviously a decision the ref made consciously to almost... You don't get booked for your first tackle, do you? So there's no reason necessarily you should get booked for your first tackle after a yellow, for argument's sake. And it wasn't like Silva was going through necessarily. It was an attacking situation, but it wasn't through on goal. It was very similar to the one Silva dives in on someone. I haven't seen it back, but he dives in and gives away a free kick. So we could have the same point, really.
Well, Milner ultimately comes off substitution, Joe Gomez at right back, and I think he really struggled to deal with Foden. Kieran, like you mentioned before, Jesus comes wandering through our midfield, passes it out wide, and then it ultimately ends up in the back of the net to De Bruyne. Where do you think we went wrong there? Is it midfield, or do you think Gomez needs to do much more out on the wing?
I think to start off the midfield, I mean, there's certainly more than one opportunity to win the ball there. That's where it's got to be stopped right there. He's allowed to carry it too far, beats a few men, and then obviously plays a ball to Foden, who I thought, was wonderful for them as he is. He's a, wonderful young English talent. But I mean, obviously the Gomez gets out there. Can he stop it? I mean, it's not really a cross. It's a cut back to the edge of the box, isn't it? So you can't really cover everything. I think he is covering the cross into the box, but the one man you just don't want it to fall to. I know it's on his left foot, but you see the ball come back, you instantly look to see who's there, and obviously you see De Bruyne. But I mean, it's not the greatest of strikes, is it? They're just but sadly for us, it finds a way in, doesn't it? And once again kills the atmosphere. So for me, I don't criticize Joe Gomez too much for that one. For me, it's the midfield. The ball's there to be won. It's got to be won. It isn't. And look at that situation. It could be it is the reason why we've dropped 2 points.
Dan, how about you then? Do you think that after the Brentford game last week, it's another point dropped, or do you think it was a well fought draw in the end?
Oh, listen, I can't sit here and say that we've dropped points today, because that was a draw. Like, that is a fair result, in my opinion. Simply based on the first half. Like, you can't play that badly first half and be disappointed with a draw. Like, we were so far off it. I would have, if someone had offered me a draw, regardless of what happened second half at that point, I'd have bit your hand off, honestly, because I think we were good second half. I do. And I think obviously we've gone ahead twice. So when we look back, even further away from tonight, it might be disappointing. We probably should shut the game up. But right now, overall, a draw is an absolutely fair result and not a bad one. When you take into account injuries as well, it's not something we're going to highlight necessarily tonight. But, a lot of our problems today have come from right back with James Milner playing there. Now, I don't necessarily think Trent is much better defensively than James Milner. That's probably not fair. But I just don't think City would have targeted it as much because they know if they're going to put two men out there, Trent going forward is going to cause them so many problems. They wouldn't have been able to do that. So there are little stipulations, but yeah, a draw is absolutely fair.
Well, we talked about sort of lethargy and the first half and not being able to see the game out. Earlier on in the week, midweek football, Porto in the Champions League. I must admit, I was very surprised to see the lineup that Klopp put out. Do you think that had an effect today, considering that he put a really strong 11 out, Dan? Or do you think that it was just ultimately City playing quite well that ultimately got them the draw?
It looked like it had an effect, if we're going to be honest. Like I said, certainly for that first sort of 45, it looked like we were drained of all sort of energy and, inspiration and even fight at some point, to be honest with you. I think we were second to most balls, losing most challenges. It was really hard to watch for a while. I didn't necessarily put that down to the strong 11, but there was definitely problems. The only thing I would say is, obviously Klopp gave that same 11 chance to put it right in the second half, and I think that was a big telling factor. So I don't think there was necessarily problems with tiredness or fatigue. I just think we didn't cope very well. I think the tactics were all wrong, and I think something wasn't working. And whatever alterations you made at half-time obviously changed that. But yeah, what can you do? You know what I mean? We move on, and we are still unbeaten in Europe and domestically, so it's not too bad.
There's always a silver lining to every cloud then, I guess. Kieran, how about you? Do you think fatigue played a factor in us drawing today, or do you just think that, again, it was City's class and ultimately we did quite well to get a draw in the end?
Yeah, I'd certainly said that in the first half. Like we were so just bereft of anything. We weren't pressing or any sort. I didn't think City were. I didn't think they were playing at fourth, fifth gear either. I think they were only second or third gear, and wasn't overly impressed by them. I thought these aren't playing perfectly here. I just why aren't we pressing? Why aren't we just keeping hold of the ball? But I was a little bit surprised. I thought you might have rotated a bit more in a week, but you can't complain if you win 5-1 away from home in the Champions League. I suppose 6 points out of 6 there, going along nicely. So you looked at it. It was a Tuesday game coming into a Sunday R4 game. You probably thought there'd have been enough time for recovery. Based on what you usually get in the Champions League sometimes anyway. So I don't think he either thought it was a problem. It looked like it was in the first half. And like I said before, I'm very surprised he didn't make a change. But, the players, the way they came out in the second half, that certainly that first 10, 15 minutes, they were fantastic. So it was clearly just things that needed tweaking. And I think just a good old-fashioned rollicking from Jurgen was what was needed there.
Well, we'll move away from the City game and we'll sort of track back to a team that wish we could play every single week, which was the Porto game. What did you make of it overall, Kieran? Do you think that Klopp put that strong side out as sort of earmarked Porto as a tie that we need to get 6 points out of for both legs?
Yeah, I think in terms of our qualification, you look at the 3 teams. They're the one who you'd probably say that's our best chance of 6 points home and away. I mean, I don't know what it is because I look back. I saw a start. Their last 11 home Champions League games, 8 of them they've only conceded a maximum of 1 goal in the game. The other 3 have been 4 and 2 5s against us. So it must literally just be every time we come rolling to town, they go to pieces because they play some decent teams in that time as well, and seem to hold them off. But you know, it was a pretty, you know, pretty standard performance. You know, we were good. We weren't excellent. You know, I think every time we play, some of the goals just make me laugh. Some of the defensive errors and the goalkeeping errors that I've seen, honestly, you could make a list of them. And if you've still got those DVD gaffs that they still bring out from when I was a kid, you know, most of them would be on there. But you know, we weren't in trouble much, were we? You know, 5-1 probably flattered us a little bit, but we were that good. I think he obviously, like I say, targeted the game. We were, you know, early on to get 6 points out of 6. With what obviously Atletico got a late winner there, but I think we're 5 points clear of third or 4 points clear. So it's, you know, if you can get the job done early in the Champions League, we get a win and a draw against Atletico. I think that's pretty much us done, and we can look to rotate later on. So no, I didn't have a problem with how strong we were.
Dan, how about you? Was there anyone that stood out, and what was your thoughts on the performance overall?
I was surprised we went so strong. Just to say, I think I expected Tsimikas to play sort of as a minimum, really. I thought we'd see a change there, but he's pretty much named his strongest 11. Hopefully, I think looking to get some confidence, which he probably did out of it. But yeah, in terms of standout, Curtis Jones was phenomenal, wasn't he? And we've all seen, spoken, heard about what he's done in that game, but he was truly outstanding. And that's what he can do against sides that allow or give a lot of space. You know, when we haven't got as much space to operate, he might not be quite there yet, which we've seen today. But yeah, he was phenomenal. And it was nice for, obviously, Firmino coming on, getting 2 goals. Thought that was important. Shame to concede. And I thought Milner, actually, as much as he struggled today, I thought he was really good in midweek. Especially against Diaz, probably their best, most dangerous player. So yeah, it was a really good all-round performance. Important as well, because I think I've said previously on here, I think picking up 6 points against Porto, from our point of view, is really going to be key to getting out of this group, because I don't think, and I said this prior to the Atletico Porto group, I don't think the others will do that. And Atletico have already dropped points against them, which I think Milan will do as well. So if we can just take 6 from Porto and almost tick that off, that is a seriously good footing. Then 2 games and win your home games, we're through, aren't we? You know, that's sort of, you know, that's 12 points there, and then that's it, you're done. So I think targeting the Porto games and just ticking them off, no messing, no drop points, and go from there.
Well, the City game finishes off our run of games until for now the international break. So I was interested to get your thoughts on the league so far. We've had some very interesting games. You know, we played 2 top teams in terms of Chelsea and Man City. How do you think we've performed so far, just as Liverpool based? And then what team has surprised you the most this year in terms of their performance? I'll start with you, Dan.
Yeah, so in terms of Liverpool, I think I've been relatively impressed. If you'd have offered me, you know, unbeaten at this international break, I'd have obviously been very pleased. Disappointing in the past 2 weeks, you know, domestically in terms of dropping points, particularly against Brentford. Like Kieran said earlier, if you beat Brentford, today's point tastes that little bit sweeter, doesn't it? Yeah, listen, it's difficult to sort of argue. I think when you take into account how many players we had coming back at the start of the season, I think we were all quite surprised that we started so well, really. I think we all expected to be a bedding in period, certainly for Van Dijk. So having him come back and look 90-odd% of what we know he is, I think is really good. So yeah, it's hard not to be happy. And I think getting players back after the international break, which we're going to speak about, will be important. In terms of, well, I suppose just to finish on us, we are in the mix to win this Premier League. Like, it's difficult to sort of go gung-ho and say we are going to win it, but we are certainly in the mix with City and with Chelsea, in my opinion. In terms of who I've been impressed with, I was actually genuinely really impressed with Brentford last week, I must admit. And I know they won again today against West Ham. So, you know what? One of my main takeaways from that game, I was impressed with West Ham prior to they obviously got beat today, which is a big blow for them. But one of my main takeaways from that Brentford game, positive-wise, was that I think they'll do that to a lot of teams this season. And I think they'll do that to our rivals as well. Like, there's no reason why they can't take points off Chelsea and City as well. So those drop points right now, you think newly promoted, you've got to win. But when City go there, or Chelsea go there and they drop points, it'll look wholly different by then. So, yeah, I'd say Brentford have been my sort of surprise, most impressive package, closely followed by West Ham and probably Brighton as well.
Kieran, how about you? Dan's mentioned there Brentford. We did get a draw against them. Do you think they've been quite impressive this season, or is there any other teams that have impressed you as well?
I mean, yeah, he's sort of stole me thunder there. They're the couple of ones I was thinking of. I mean, any team that comes up from the Premier League, longer the days gone where they just park five at the back and try and take, nick a point here, nick a point there. They come out all guns blazing. I've not seen. I saw them on the opening day against Arsenal. They were superb, and again saw them against us, and there was no backing away from it. They were always in the game. And like we said, I think they're going to do that. I mean, funny Dan says that the first game for them after the international break is Chelsea at home. So, immediately I think that's a wonderful time to play them, especially after an international break as well. A lot of Chelsea, because a lot more Chelsea players are going to be gone than Brentford players. So, again, you look at that one. It's at the I think it's the Saturday R5 slot as well, same as us. So hopefully that certainly one that. You look at the game, you think, they might drop points there. As Dan said, Brighton with the other one, really, decent start to the season. Whether they'll sustain it, probably not. But, you get that amount of points early on. It's, you're already halfway to safety, pretty much. So they've just got to tick off a couple of wins here and there, beat Norwich, beat Watford, whenever they play them again. And they should be sound. In terms of us, I mean, to be honest, there's not really a lot to complain about. I mean, unbeaten in the league. It's a very congested league at the minute. There's about 3 points separating about 5 or 6 teams. So we're definitely in the mix there. I think that from now till Christmas we'll see who sticks around. I think it'll filter down a bit. I think the main three will be us, Chelsea, and City. I think that's going to go pretty much near enough towards the death. Whether who's going to win it between them three. I don't think it's going to be one of the previous seasons where the title's been won by March or April. I think it's going to go down to the last few weeks in May, certainly. So I think for us, unbeaten in the league, progression in the League Cup, 1-2 out of 2 in the Champions League. Certainly be a lot worse. I can't say. I can't say I'm too disappointed about it, because I'm not. It's I think we've started very, very well.
Do you think then, Kieran, that the international breaks come at a good time? I mean, there's never really a good time for international football, but do you think it sort of stems a flow that we've had at the moment, or do you think it allows players to come back in and have a rest and sort of recover from the injuries?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, obviously we've spoken about, too disappointing. Well, not so much this week, but obviously disappointing Joe last week. We just, we can take stock of what we've got. Obviously, players are going to go away on the international break, and we can only pray they stay fit during them. You know what they're like. It's basically a roll of a dice whether they come back with a minor knock or something. So we'll wait and see on that. But yeah, I know it's one of these things that can't be avoided. We know when they're going to come at the start of the season. There's not much we can do about them. I think I'd say, like I say, just take stock of where we are. We've got 2 weeks to the Watford game. We can prepare for that. The lads that aren't going international duty can have a decent rest, which quite a few of the squads, so we can at least get the bulk of them, the ones that are going to be involved, ready for that game. Because I believe if with the Brazilian lads go this time, I believe they play. It's like 36 or 48 hours before the Watford game. So, whether they'll not make it back in time, or whether they're fit to play in that game, I don't know. So, we'll have to wait and see on that. But I think we just take stock of where we are. We're in a decent position. I don't think it's too bad to have it at this point. After 2 draws, we can get ourselves ready and go again.
Dan, with Watford sacking their manager today, do you think that the international break doesn't come at a great time for them, considering, straight into an international, and then they've got Liverpool? So what do you think? What do you make of the sacking, first of all? And then what do you think about their issue at the moment as well with the international break?
The sacking, first of all, when a manager gets sacked and you see it on Twitter, normally I was walking actually. I was out on a walk this morning. I seen it and I thought. Normally I go, oh yeah, they've sacked someone. And it's quite a shock.
Yeah.
Not with Watford.
No,
not with Watford. No. It was honestly like I'd seen the most mundane tweet of all time, just completely neutral to it because it's just what they do. It's just what they do. It's just they've made a history of doing this now. It doesn't necessarily work very often for them. But listen, I don't know enough about the man they had in charge, to be honest, really, to make a judgment call on him. I believe they're getting Ranieri in, which is interesting. Not necessarily the sort of manager who I would suggest will take you out of sort of a relegation battle, which is probably what they're in. I wouldn't put him down as that. Obviously, we know what he did in the Premier League previously with Leicester, but not necessarily, you look at your likes of your Sam Allardyces of this world, don't you? I mean, they're not really in a relegation battle right now, which is what makes the sacking even more bizarre. The fact they're 14th and they've actually made a decent start, but we expect them to be in a relegation battle at some point during the season. And in terms of obviously what it does to us, that new manager bounce against Watford straight after international break, it's got all the telltale signs. That Watford, after what they did last time there, it's got a horrible narrative written all over it, hasn't it? But yeah, they haven't got much time to work on things, I suppose, have they? Because a lot of their players will be leaving, like ours. So that's positive in one sense. And in terms of the international break for us, I actually think it's come at a really good time. I think based on what I've seen today, and I think in terms of hopefully getting Thiago, because with these Thiago and Trent injuries, by all accounts, i.e. Jurgen Klopp, it looks like we're talking, a matter of days sort of thing now. And we've got 2 weeks off now. If we had Atletico Madrid on Wednesday, they're missing that game. If we had Watford next Saturday, they're probably missing that game. So it might have come at quite a handy time because those two, I mentioned Thiago earlier, what he would have done today, and Trent. I think those two are really important to us. Actually, listen, I'm looking at the most positive outcome in terms of a few of our players get a little rest over this international break. Like, even sit on the bench. Like, Henderson rarely plays for England. So even sitting on the bench would do, you know what I mean, for one or two of the games. And the same with the Brazilians and the same with whoever else is going, wherever else in the world. They all come back fully fit, no issues, and we've got Thiago and Trent back. If that happens, this is the perfect time for a break.
Kieran, what about you? What do you make of the Watford situation then, obviously, with the international break and how that affected Liverpool as well?
I mean, it's just Watford, isn't it? I mean, this the last year they didn't have a change of management was 2010, so that just says it all. It's what they do. I don't, like Dan said, we're looking in from the outside. We don't know what goes on. So to be honest, I completely forgot he was the manager. It came up. I was like, oh, okay. I just had something I hadn't clocked on to. But it would happen to us. The game before us, hadn't it? International break, Saturday 12:30 kickoff, new manager in charge. As Dan said, right after the 3-0 of a couple of years ago. So it's all there. It'll be up to us to go. I'm fully confident when we go there. We'll hopefully if most of the lads come back fit and we get Trent and Thiago back, I think they come straight back in when we do play them. Hopefully we should have enough. Obviously, you look at them and probably standout players. Been Ismail Yassar this season. He's got quite a few goals, a couple of assists as well. So he'll probably be the main one to have a look at than to stop. If we stop him, I think we've got a very good chance of winning the game. But it's just bizarre where they are. Sort of lower mid-table in the league, but it's what Watford do, and whoever comes in, I'll be very surprised if they're not sacked by the end of next season.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts and your opinions this evening. It's been good to talk about Liverpool again, and thank you for watching as well. Yeah, great ending. But yeah, thank you for watching as well, and we'll see you after the international break. Thank you.